Hi everybody, Matt back with you. Hope you're okay. Sun is shining, the weather is sweet. Don't worry, you won't see my dancing feet. Instead, what you're seeing behind me is the view that I grew up with as a child, because I'm above Ebden Bridge, Old Town, and somewhere, got to look around to find it, you might be able to see the Hare and Hounds pub. Just hidden from view is the house I grew up in as a child, and my mum is still there. Old Town was here throughout my entire childhood. I went to school here, grew up here, and all my relatives were here. So this is the view that I had, and I never ever take that for granted. I was very, very lucky to grow up in such a wonderful space and to still be able to come back here. That's enough about me though. What we're doing today is we're heading the opposite direction. We're going up over the hill there, and we're going to look at some ancient rocks, I think we'll call them. They've been there way before me, they will be there way after me, by hundreds of years either side. Yeah, this could be interesting. Let's see what we can find. So the track we're taking is currently going through a quarry at Mount Skip, and it has in the last couple of decades become more of like a dirt bike track, which is fine. I think it's out of the way, doesn't do any harm really. It just creates quite a interesting landscape. It is absolutely scorching. I am likely to be out of breath, and quite often when you're up here there is at least a breeze. There isn't even that at the minute. But just above us here is Mount Skip Golf Club. I'm going to walk across the golf club to get to where we need to be. Now, we're not trespassing, there is an official path across the golf club, which is always, I don't know, it's a beautiful spot, isn't it? Being up here in the heights. I should point out Studley Pike is just behind us. So yeah, so you're not trespassing or anything like that, but obviously do be careful if you decide to follow this walk. If they're playing golf, you might get hit by a ball. So as we head up the path, once you've got over the golf course, the course just continue to stretch to my right. Looks down into my Themroyd, and over to my left is the remains of more quarrying. All this hillside really, not just here but stretching for miles, was various quarries, whether you're up in Peckett or over in Midgley. Yeah, and I have family connections to one, which, if I'm not frazzled, will be the end of the video. I used to do this walk quite a lot as a child, a small child. Come up either with often my dad or my uncle, and we'd head to the rock I'm taking you to, and back then it seemed to take hours to reach it. I think now you can kind of get there in about 20 minutes. That's when you're a middle-aged man with asthma. What I'm filming today I have covered before on a very unwatched and unloved video from 2 years ago. The information on it is going to be the same, but the link to it is here, or this is what you need to search for. I'll give it a different title and hope for the best. I've done other videos from up here, including a aeroplane crash that happened just a little bit further over. That video is here, and yeah, there's a few of interest on the channel you might like to watch if you like this one. But yeah, those are the two that spring to mind. We have reached the road. Not quite the yellow brick road. So the first place I'm taking you today is just a bit further on here, and I'm filming now because quite often there are lots of people there. It's quite a popular walking destination, and it's called today Churn Milk Joan, and it is a standing stone, and it's named that due to an incident of a girl who was said to have walked from, I think, London heading to Peckett Well, and unfortunately she died on the spot where the stone is. There's also a suggestion that she got attacked by foxes whilst there, and that's what killed her. It's very similar in a way to another story we've looked at, which is the two lads Cairns in Cragvale. That story is here, even more unloved than the the original one of this. It's okay, you watch things now. There is, however, so much folklore and stories attached to Churn Milk Joan, which is apparently named after, or named by almost, Ted Hughes. There is a poem by Ted Hughes which tells of the event, what happened to the girl. So that's the most recent tale, but there's so many others, as there is with all the stones I'm showing you today. So we are following the Calderdale Way. That's the way we've come from. This is the way we're going, and this is still Wadsworth Moor, and up to the left again, more evidence of quarrying. When we reach our first stone, that's when everything else after there, in case I forget to mention it, becomes Midgley Moor. A lonely stone, afloat in the stone heavings of emptiness, keeps telling her tale. Fox has killed her. You take the coins out of the hollow in the top of it, put your own in. Fox has killed her here. But why just here? Why not 5 yards that way? A squared column, planted by careful labour. Sun cannot ease it, though the moors grow warm. Fox has killed her, and her milk spilled. Okay, so this is the rock known as Churn Milk Joan. The rock just on the floor next to it could well be the original stone, rather than the one that stood today. Like the poem says, you're supposed to check the top for pennies, and if there are some you can take them for good luck, and then leave some in return. So, is this going to be enough to get me to Indonesia? Ooh. Better than normal. It's usually 1p. I have nothing to return it, so I shall return that to there for my good luck. Because it's also apparently, this is we're on a crossroads, as you can see. There are paths heading in all directions, whether it's down into Midgley at Mythenroyd or across to Midgley Moor, back onto Wadsworth Moor over there, which is the route we're taking, which would eventually take you to London. And it's said to potentially be a portal to another world. Now, what are those other stories connected with this place? One of them is that the bells of St. Michael's down in Mythenroyd, when they ring on New Year's Eve, Churn Milk Joan is said to spin round 3 times. I wonder if anybody's ever been up and checked if that happens. Maybe I could do that this year. What do you think? And there's also a suggestion that Churn Milk Joan, which I suppose if it was the right way around would be Milk Churn Joan, is a variation on Churn Milk Peg, who was a boggart. And Churn Milk Peg lived in nut bushes, not Nutbush city limits. And if children ever came near to try and take nuts out of the bush, she would push, used to have a pipe, long pipe, and she would try and push the pipe into the children's mouths to get them to smoke it. If they stopped, if they kept being naughty and kept trying to take the nuts, She would say something along the lines of, if you don't stop, I'm going to take you to th' old lad. And I guess she was from Yorkshire. And yeah, old lad, I presume, is the devil or Satan, and that would have been the end of you. It's probably one of those stories that is to try and put you off taking things from like fruit and nuts off bushes, in case a churn milk peg gets you. Okay, so we're on the crossroads. Somebody watching me from the top of the hill. And we're going to walk on the one that doesn't look as much like a path as the others. But sometimes as a child we did just walk a little bit further to what is ahead of us here. So these little stone-built squares are shooting butts, and there's a number of them spread out across the moors here, and you can see they are now ruins, and not in a good way, but it's connected to grouse shooting, which was, I suppose, a sport back in the day. And August the 12th is known as the Glorious 12th, and that is when people would be inside the shooting butts. There would be people then run across the moors, send grouse up into the air, and the people hiding in the butts would shoot them. We have a very different view on it today, don't we? In terms of that activity, and as you can see, it certainly doesn't look like an activity that happens anymore. And there would probably be a lot of people up here protesting it if it did still happen. But I can still remember as a child, yeah, August the 12th, bang bang, all across the hillsides. Yeah, old traditions. It seems so long ago, it really aren't. It was also quite good fun, not the shooting bit, but we would come up and look in the shooting butts as children, and we'd find old cartridges and things like that, which we then take home. Yeah, I said it already, I think that this hillside was my childhood home, and I was always up here, often with a catapult as well. I grew up with the Beano, come on. This one doesn't look in too bad condition. There we go, yeah, they were all numbered. This is number 10. So now heading across the moorland from the shooting butts to this little lump on the hill just there. Now, interestingly, the two places we're coming to next have connections to Robin Hood, the legend of Robin Hood. And it's only really when I started doing these videos, almost 4 years ago now, that I find out quite how much of this area is connected to Robin Hood. We've looked at Robin Hood's grave. Oh, chance for more links here. Robin Hood's grave. I think we've seen Robin Hood's rock. Yeah, can't think what else. That's the end of the links. But the two here have a connection as well, and it's apparently all to do with the fact Robin Hood is said to have come through this area. You're probably screaming at me now, going, Robin Hood's not real, Robin Hood's not real. Believe what you want, guys. This is folklore, okay? Folklore has elements of truth from way back, and it changes over time. So take everything I tell you, all the stories today, with a pinch of salt, and just enjoy them as stories. because that's what they are, stories from the past before things were written down. So this lump that we looked at on the way here is called the Miller's Grave, and the Robin Hood connection is to do with the story of Much the Miller's Son. In the distance on the hillside, that lump you can see is the next rock, which we're going to look at soon. That's called Robin Hood's Pennystone. Let's have a look here first. Okay, so this is the Miller's Grave, and suggestions are, at one point it was a full dome shape and therefore like a huge cairn. But over time people have come and taken rocks from it. They're treasure hunters perhaps, looking for things from the past. However, the history here is obviously, it goes back a very, very long way, centuries. And we also have here a similar shape to what we will see on the rock beyond, in terms of potential, this being a plague stone. There's also some connections with solstice. We've just had summer solstice. That's good timing for putting my glasses back on. Sorry. But yeah, I don't understand all that. Somebody else might explain it, but apparently the stones here where the break is are linked with, I think, perhaps more the winter solstice, in terms of where the sun rises and sets on winter solstice. Sorry, I can't help you with that one. However, I can tell you the story connected to the Miller's Grave. So the story of this being a grave, although it may well have been a burial site of the past, and there is potential for this whole area was once lived in many years ago. It involves a man called Lee, and Lee lived in Hebden Bridge and worked at Mayroyd Mill, which is near where the train station is in Hebden, and he committed suicide. Now, back then, this was what we would call probably a God-fearing land, and suicide was not the done thing to do. So, although there was, potentially his family were upset, the people in the area were actually very cross, and Lee's body was buried at a crossroads in Midgley Centre. However, people in Midgley were not very happy about this and seemed to be afraid of that site where Lee was. He was in, therefore, he'd committed suicide. He was in unconsecrated ground, and their terror at this grew so much that eventually what happened is they went to where he'd been buried. They uncovered the body and dragged the body out of the ground. Some people tried to stop this mob from doing that, and those people who were trying to stop it had stones thrown at them. Lee's body was beaten by the mob and brought up here and dumped in the Miller's Grave. However, even though we're now quite a long way out of Midgley, footsteps, it didn't appease the people of Midgley village, and they were still very unhappy that there was this body, once again, on officially unconsecrated ground here at the graveside. So eventually what happened is poor Lee was removed from here and buried in the churchyard at Pennystone, and that finally put to bed the ghost of Lee, if you want. It's folklore as far as I know. I don't know if there was somebody called Lee dragged up here and then put in the churchyard at Pennystone. I do not have another name. if you know otherwise, and if there is a grave to visit. I imagine it'd be in an unmarked grave, but it'd be lovely to go and find that. And yeah, thankfully we understand things a bit better today, don't we? Okay, so that's the miller's grave. Let's head to the next location. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned that the folklore is also that it's the burial site of Much the Miller's Son, character from Robin Hood. Right, the next stone linked with Robin Hood is very close. What's interesting is if you do decide to follow this walk through, you'll find that as soon as you've found one thing, the next thing is just on the horizon, as this one is here. But this stone here is called Robin Hood's Pennystone. So it has got a bit windy as I've now got quite high up. I apologise for any background noise. Hopefully the story comes out though. But the Robin Hood's Pennystone is officially a plague stone, and if you look on top there, a bit like the stone that we saw in the miller's grave, you can see there is a hollowed out section there. And what would happen is victims of the plague would come up here with money, and they would drop it in that hollow, which would be full of vinegar, and the vinegar would make sure that the coins were not covered in the plague. It would cleanse them. The next day the plague victims would come back, and that money had paid for goods essentially that they wouldn't be able to get anywhere else, so they would come up here and take the goods of food and things. Now, how they managed to do that when they were suffering from plague, I've absolutely no idea. And who was responsible? Again, no idea. And again, it's folklore, it may not be. However, you do see plague stones around, and they certainly play a part in our own history. Whether this actually is one or not, I don't know. But that hollowed out shape is where it's got that suggestion from. Let's see if I can get a bit nearer to the... Yeah. So again, called the Pennystone because you would put a penny in the top of it. Right, onwards. So it's quite an interesting landscape here where there's these bits dug out. I do wonder if it's possible form of mining or again just quarrying. But this stone here is got the name of the Greenwood Stone. So as you can see, this stone has 1779 carved into it. However, there's been reference to the Greenwood Stone here dating back to 1590, and it's classed as a boundary stone. So you can see how I've walked on that path here. Once again, Wadsworth Moor is over here, Midgley Moor is over here. So I presume this would have been like a boundary waymarker stone. I don't think there's anything else attached to this one, otherwise it looks like it has a very smiley face, doesn't it? But bizarrely, there's also supposedly Greenwood Stone B rather than 2 laying down somewhere in the heather. And I think the nearest thing to it is this. And in the previous video I suggested it was this, because you can imagine that that would have been stood upright, surrounded by the stones like the other one was. There's no carving on it, but potentially it could have worn off, or it could just be on the other side. However, it's not going to move. So yeah, Greenwood Stone B, I think. I do quite like how the stone there is just kind of sticking its neck and head out of the ground. It really does look like a face and big teeth from here. From here, the windmills at the top are wain stalls, but down in the valley, this side would be Ludden and Dean, but you might just be able to make out a reservoir and stuff. All that area there is incredibly difficult to access. A lot of it's privately owned and not particularly accessible, and down in the bottom is the remains of Castle Carr. I've been quite lucky this year because I've got a lot of time this particular year, and I've managed to get tickets to go to the open day. The open day only happens once a year. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all in a year. So in a couple of weeks' time you will see a video with hundreds of people on it for the Castle Carr ruins and fountains. I haven't been since about 2017, so it's nice to be able to get tickets and finally add this to the collection for what's around here. We've done the gatehouse before, but yeah, it's impossible to get into it really. They're very keen on finding people who go in there. So I never have. Yeah, 2 weeks' time, Castle Carr. So potentially we could have carried on and eventually reached a path that goes right down into the valley. I don't think you'll see them on this video, it'd be too dark and too far away. There are some water towers heading down the hill. That is the water system that goes right over the hillside and down to Castle Carr, the original water supply, I think. We're going to head back from Wadsworth Moor onto Midgley Moor, and we're going to head to find somewhere for a picnic, and if I can get away with it, a paddle. Can actually see the Castle Carr ruins. I'll try and zoom in, but I don't think it'll pick it up from this distance. So I'm hoping we can reach the little reservoir you can see there, which is just above Booth. It's an interesting ruin here, but it is being restored, so it's not abandoned as such. Okay, looks like there is a path this way. That's good. So I can already see that there's quite a few people having a swim, so that might put me off actually getting in, but I'm not there yet. So there are two kind of dams or reservoirs here. The one in the distance is full of water. This one only ever seems to look like this. I don't know if it has breached and therefore no longer usable, or if it's an overflow, but I always think it looks quite creepy. So the reason I always find it creepy is it just reminds me of something from Stephen King, and I think it could be Stand By Me, but I might be wrong. Did they drain a reservoir and found a body in the reservoir? It has that kind of vibe to it for me. Or in one of these tunnels, maybe there's some laughing clown, who knows. Anyway, yeah, lots of people. So it just say drinking water. Obviously nobody's just going to come and get a cup and pick it out of the water. When I covered this place before, I got some particularly unpleasant comments about the fact I was swimming in it. No, it's full of frogs and tadpoles and fish and people. It gets filtered. Don't have a panic attack. So I can't really show you much of the water as it is just full of kids. But this building is on the edge of it, which I think was possibly an old water treatment works. And it's always good to see that the old caravan somehow survives. So there we go, I can't get in trouble for this one. I didn't swim. My goodness. Teenagers are experienced, aren't they? How they speak to each other. And they've got to vape before they get in the water. Yeah. Okay, so you've avoided me swimming in this one, and therefore uncomfortable amounts of flesh on display. So instead we're going to bring this video to an end in a moment, and I'll just head back to not quite where we started, and I'll show you I think my great uncle, or potentially great uncle, still to be decided, former quarry, one of two. So we're above Midgley, just here, and quarry that he owned 100 years ago was called Scotland Quarry, or Scotch Quarry. He had another one in Peckett, which we've looked at before, and it's not much more than just a few rocks on top of hillsides. This one is far more impressive to look at. Could still be in use as well by another group, so yeah, just have a quick look at it and we'll call this one a day. Okay, so here we are. This is just a part of the Scotland Quarry, which belonged to, owned by my great uncle Dent Parker, and the stone from either here or the one at Peckett went to build the Peckett Pike Memorial. So it's the same stone. Yeah, it's a bit of history, personal history that I'm quite proud of, although I'm not officially a Parker. I'm adopted, if you don't know. My real name is Johnny Topless. And that's true. Yeah. I'm glad that was changed before I started school. So there we go, guys. I'm going to leave you from here at Scotland Quarry. I hope you've enjoyed our wander past those ancient rocks of history, myth and folklore. Yeah, sorry you didn't get a swimming one this time. C'est la vie. You're probably incredibly happy about it. So we'll see you very soon for the next video. Do take care. Enjoy a wonderful sunshine. Bye for now.